My name is Kenya Matthews. I'm 32, and I work as a criminal defense lawyer. 3 days ago, my twin sister walked into my office. She was covered in bruises so bad that, for a second, I didn't even know who she was. She told me her husband was the one who did this to her. In that moment, I made a choice that would flip both our lives upside down. I traded places with her, and I made sure he would never forget it. You see, when your identical twin shows up bleeding and hurt, begging you not to call the cops because she's too scared, something inside you just breaks. I've spent 10 years putting criminals behind bars. I never thought I'd have to become one to rescue my own sister. But here we are, and I wouldn't change a thing. If this story hits home for you, hit that like button right now. Subscribe so you don't miss stories like this. And drop a comment below telling me what city you're watching from. I want to know how far this message reaches. Now let me tell you exactly how I taught that monster a lesson. First, I need you to get something about me and my sister. We're not just twins, we're identical. Same face, same voice, same little habits. Growing up, even our parents had a hard time telling us apart. We used to switch places in school, trick our teachers, and pull pranks on our friends. Back then, it was all harmless fun. We were inseparable. Two halves of the same soul. That's what our mom used to say. But life has a way of pulling people apart, doesn't it? After college, I went to law school. Kesha became an elementary school teacher. I moved to the city, working 80-hour weeks at a law firm, fighting my way to partner. She stayed in our hometown, teaching second graders how to read. I was chasing success. She was chasing, I don't know, maybe peace, maybe normal life, a family. And that's when she met Marcus Johnson. God, I should have seen it coming. I should have paid more attention. But I was too busy building my career, taking depositions, winning cases, making a name for myself. I missed the warning signs. I missed everything. Marcus seemed perfect at first. He was a pharmaceutical sales rep. Good job, decent money, charming as heck. The kind of man who opens doors, pulls out chairs, and says all the right things. At their wedding, he gave this speech about how Kesha was the best thing that ever happened to him, how he would spend his whole life making her happy. I remember looking at my sister in her white dress, glowing with hope, and thinking, she deserves this. She deserves to be loved like this. I was a fool. The distance between us grew after the wedding. At first, I thought it was natural. She had a husband now, then a baby, my niece Aaliyah. I had cases stacking up, clients demanding my attention. We went from talking every day to once a week, then once a month, then just on holidays and birthdays. And every time I saw her, she seemed smaller, quieter, like someone was slowly turning down her volume, dimming her light. I told myself I was imagining things. I told myself, marriage changes people. Motherhood changes people. I told myself a lot of lies because the truth was too scary to face. My twin sister, my other half, was being destroyed right in front of me. I was too blind to see it until 3 days ago. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I remember because Tuesdays are my light days. Just paperwork, no court appearances. I was in my office reviewing case files, sipping cold coffee, when my secretary buzzed in. Her voice had this edge to it, this concern. Miss Matthews, your sister is here, but Kenya, she doesn't look good. My heart dropped before I even saw her. I told my secretary to send her in and to hold all my calls. The door opened and I looked up. I swear to God, for a second, I didn't recognize the woman standing there. She was wearing sunglasses indoors, in my office with no windows facing the sun. Long sleeves despite it being 85 degrees outside, a turtleneck in the middle of summer, and she was limping, favoring her left side like every step sent pain shooting through her body. Kesha. I stood up, my attorney brain already clicking into overdrive, cataloging details, building a case before I even knew what the case was. What's wrong? What happened? She didn't answer, just stood there, trembling. I walked around my desk, closed the distance between us, and locked my office door. Privacy. Whatever was about to happen needed privacy. Take off the sunglasses, I said. My voice came out harder than I intended, but I was scared. Terrified, actually, because I already knew. Somewhere deep in my gut, I already knew. She shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks, and that's when I saw them. The bruises on her neck, finger-shaped, 4 on one side, 1 on the other. Someone had choked my sister. Someone had put their hands around her throat and squeezed. I reached up and pulled the sunglasses off her face myself. And what I saw, Jesus Christ, what I saw will haunt me for the rest of my life. Her left eye was swollen shut, the skin around it a deep purple black. Her lip was split, still crusty with dried blood. There was a gash on her cheekbone that should have had stitches but didn't. And her eyes, the one that could still open, was dead, empty. Like someone had reached inside her and scooped out everything that made her Kesha and left behind just a shell. Who did this? I asked, but I already knew the answer. There's only one person who gets that close, who has that kind of access, who can hurt you where no one else can see. Kenya, please. Her voice was a whisper, broken and hoarse. Please don't call the police. Please, he'll kill me. He said if I ever told anyone, he'd kill me. Roll up your sleeves. I wasn't asking. I was telling, using my courtroom voice, the one that makes witnesses confess and defendants crack. She hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything I needed to know, but I needed to see. I needed the full picture. So I reached out and pushed up her sleeves myself. And oh God, the map of hell that was revealed, bruises everywhere, old yellow ones fading into new purple ones, belt marks across her forearms where she'd tried to protect herself, circular burn marks, cigarette burns dotting her skin like some sick constellation, defensive wounds on her hands where she tried to block punches, and on her wrists, rope burns. He'd tied her up. That son of a had tied up my sister. I felt something inside me break. No, not break. Shatter, explode. A rage so pure and hot, it burned through every professional boundary I'd ever built, every ethical line I'd ever drawn. This wasn't just a client. This wasn't just a case. This was my sister, my twin, the other half of my soul. How long? I managed to ask through clenched teeth. 3 years. She said it so quietly, I almost didn't hear. It started about 6 months after we got married. 3 years. 3 years of this hell, and I hadn't known, hadn't seen, hadn't been there. Tell me everything, I said. From the beginning, every detail. I need to know what we're dealing with. And so she told me. God, the thing she told me. It started small. Control disguised as care. Marcus wanted to know where she was all the time, who she was talking to, what she was doing. He said it was because he loved her so much, couldn't stand the thought of anything happening to her. He started criticizing her clothes, too tight, too revealing, making her look like she wanted attention from other men. So she started dressing more conservatively. Then it was her friends. He didn't like them, said they were bad influences, said they were trying to break up their marriage. So she stopped seeing them. Then it was me. He said I made Kesha feel bad about her life, that I was always showing off my success, making her feel small. That wasn't true. That was never true. But she believed him. Or at least she was too exhausted to fight. So the calls stopped. The visits stopped. He isolated her completely. And I let it happen because I was too busy with my own life to notice. The first time he hit her was on a Thursday night. She remembered the day because it was garbage day, and she'd forgotten to put the bins out. Such a small thing. But Marcus came home drunk. He'd been drinking more and more. And he saw the bins still by the garage. Something in him just snapped. He grabbed her by the hair, dragged her outside, and slammed her face into the garbage bin. Told her if she was going to act like trash, she could be with the trash. She said she was in shock. Couldn't believe it had happened. He apologized the next morning, brought her flowers, cried, swore it would never happen again. And like an idiot, her word, not mine, she believed him. But it did happen again, and again, and again. Every time he lost money gambling, and he gambled constantly, blowing entire paychecks on sports betting, he came home and took it out on her. Every time he had a bad day at work, she paid for it. Every time his mother called and complained about something, Kesha became the punching bag. And speaking of his mother, Jesus Christ, that woman, Diane Johnson. She moved in with them a year into the marriage, and that's when things got exponentially worse. Because Diane didn't just enable her son's violence, she participated in it. Kesha told me about the psychological torture, how Diane would criticize everything she did. Her cooking was too salty or too bland. Her cleaning wasn't good enough. Her parenting was too soft. Her clothes were too nice for someone who contributed nothing to the household. Never mind that Kesha was working full-time as a teacher and taking care of a toddler. Diane acted like Kesha was some kind of freeloader. And then there was Tamika, Marcus's sister. She'd gotten divorced and moved back home. By which I mean she moved into Marcus and Kesha's house, rent-free, contribution-free. Just taking up space and adding to the abuse. Tamika treated Kesha like a servant, demanded that Kesha cook for her, clean for her, do her laundry. And if Kesha ever pushed back, ever said no, Tamika would run crying to Marcus. And Marcus would make Kesha pay for disrespecting his family. So it wasn't just one abuser, it was 3. A whole system of abuse working in concert to break my sister down piece by piece. But the thing that made me see red, the thing that pushed me over the edge, was what she told me about Aaliyah, my niece. 5 years old, bright-eyed, sweet, innocent. And she was watching all of this, witnessing her father beat her mother, learning that this was normal, that this was love. He hit her, Kesha said, and her voice cracked completely. Last night, Aaliyah was crying because she was scared, and Marcus told her to shut up. And when she couldn't stop crying, he slapped her across the face. Kenya, she's 5 years old. 5. And I tried to stop him. I tried to protect her. And he grabbed me by the throat and choked me until I couldn't breathe. He slammed my head against the kitchen counter over and over. And Diane and Tamika just stood there watching. And then they joined in. Tamika scratched me with a comb, and Diane shoved dirty dish rags in my mouth to shut me up. I couldn't breathe. I literally could not breathe. My vision went red. My hands started shaking. I had to sit down before I fell down. I can't do this anymore, Kenya, Kesha whispered. I can't. I've tried to leave before, but he always finds me. He always brings me back. He said if I ever try to take Aaliyah away from him, he'll kill me. And I believe him. I know he'll do it. So I don't know what to do. I came here because I don't know where else to go. I looked at my sister, my identical twin, my other half, and I saw what 3 years of systematic abuse had done. It had taken this vibrant, joyful, loving woman and turned her into a ghost, a shell, someone who was just waiting to die. And that's when I said the words that would change everything. You won't have to do this anymore. Give me 3 days, just 3 days of your life, and I promise you, he'll never touch you again. She looked at me like I was crazy. What are you talking about? We're going to switch places, I said. My mind was already working, already building the plan. You and me, we are identical. No one can tell us apart. You're going to stay here at my apartment, safe, and I'm going to go be you for 3 days. I'm going to walk into that house as Kesha, and I'm going to make Marcus Johnson regret every single thing he's ever done to you. Kenya, no, you don't understand. He's dangerous. He'll hurt you. I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile I give opposing counsel right before I destroy their case. Let him try. You have to understand, I'm not Kesha. I look like her, sound like her, but I'm fundamentally different. Kesha is gentle, soft, kind. She became a teacher because she wants to help children, nurture them, build them up. She's never thrown a punch in her life. Me? I'm a criminal defense attorney. I've spent a decade in courtrooms facing down prosecutors, judges, hostile witnesses. I've represented rapists, murderers, drug dealers, not because I think they're innocent, but because everyone deserves a defense. I've learned to be hard, cold, strategic, and outside of work, I box. 3 times a week, I'm in the ring, hitting bags, sparring, training. I know how to take a punch. More importantly, I know how to throw one. So when I walked into that house on Wednesday evening, when I used Kesha's keys to unlock the door and step into that suburban prison, I wasn't scared. I was ready. I was a loaded gun waiting to go off. The house looked normal from the outside. Nice neighborhood, manicured lawn, 2-car garage. But the inside, God, the inside felt like a tomb. Dark, suffocating. The air itself felt heavy with violence and fear. I barely closed the door when I heard her. Diane's voice, sharp and demanding, cutting through the house like a knife. Kesha, is that you? Where have you been all day? You know Marcus comes home at 6 and dinner isn't even started. I took a deep breath and channeled my sister, made myself smaller, hunched my shoulders, lowered my eyes, walked into the kitchen where Diane was sitting at the table, a stack of magazines in front of her, a glass of wine in her hand. This woman had been living in my sister's house for 2 years, contributing nothing, and had the audacity to complain about dinner not being ready. I'm sorry, I said, using Kesha's soft voice. I'll start it now. You better, Diane said, not even looking up from her magazine. And make something good this time. Last night's chicken was dry. I opened the refrigerator, cataloging everything I saw. Evidence. Always building evidence. I pulled out ingredients and started cooking. And that's when Tamika sauntered in. She was exactly what I'd pictured. Overweight, badly dyed blonde hair, an expression of perpetual contempt on her face. Oh, good. You're finally home, she said, collapsing onto the living room couch. Bring me a soda and some chips. I'm starving. I brought her a soda, and as I handed it to her, I studied her face, memorizing every feature, every expression, thinking about all the ways I was going to make her pay. Then, Aaliyah came downstairs. My heart broke all over again seeing her. She looked so much like Kesha had as a child. Big brown eyes, curly hair, a smile that could light up a room. Except she wasn't smiling. She crept down the stairs like a mouse, trying not to make noise, trying not to be noticed. Mommy, she whispered when she saw me. I knelt down and opened my arms. She ran into them. I held my niece for the first time in months, feeling her little body trembling against mine. And I made a silent promise right then and there. This ends now. No child should live in fear, not in her own home, not ever. At 8 o'clock, I heard the garage door open. Marcus was home, my entire body tensed, every muscle coiled, ready. I was about to come face to face with the man who had spent 3 years terrorizing my sister, the man who had put his hands around her throat, the man who had slapped a 5-year-old child. The door slammed open. He was already drunk. I could smell it from across the room. Bourbon and anger, a nauseating combination. "Kesha?" he shouted. "Where's my dinner?" He was tall. I'll give him that. About 6'2", probably 200 pounds. Handsome in that generic way pharmaceutical sales reps tend to be. Good hair, good teeth, good suit. The kind of man who charms doctors and nurses into prescribing his company's drugs. The kind of man who knows how to hide who he really is. But I could see him, the real him, the monster underneath the suit. "It's ready," I said quietly, setting his plate on the table. I'd made steak, mashed potatoes, green beans, and I deliberately underseasoned everything. Not enough to be obvious, but enough to be noticeable. He sat down, didn't say thank you, didn't acknowledge anyone else at the table. Just picked up his fork and knife and cut into the steak, took a bite, and his face changed. "What the hell is this?" He spit the food back onto his plate. "This tastes like cardboard. Can't you do anything right?" Diane chimed in immediately, like she'd been waiting for her cue. "I've been telling you, Marcus, she can't cook. She can't clean. I don't know what you see in her." Tamika laughed from the couch. "Girl can't do nothing but make babies." Marcus stood up, and that's when I saw it, the violence simmering just beneath the surface. He approached me where I stood by the stove. His body language was all predator. He was used to Kesha cowering, backing away, apologizing, begging. I didn't move, didn't flinch, just looked him straight in the eye. "I work all damn day," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "I put food on this table, clothes on your back, a roof over your head, and this is what you give me? Garbage." He raised his hand. I'd been waiting for this. 3 years of Kesha's reports had prepared me. He always led with a slap. An open-handed strike meant to humiliate as much as hurt. His palm came toward my face, and I caught his wrist mid-air. The shock on his face was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. He was a big man used to overpowering a woman 30 pounds lighter than him. But I work out, I train, I box, and more than that, I was fueled by 3 years of rage. I squeezed his wrist, not enough to break it, but enough to hurt, enough to let him know that something had changed, that the woman he thought he knew wasn't who he thought she was. "Not tonight, Marcus," I said, my voice still soft, but with an edge he'd never heard from Kesha before. "I've had a long day, too." He tried to pull his wrist free. Couldn't. His face flushed red, embarrassment and anger, mixing into something dangerous. He used his other hand to try to pry my fingers off, but I held firm for another 3 seconds, just long enough to make my point before releasing him. Marcus stumbled back, cradling his wrist, looking at me like I'd just grown a second head. Diane gasped. "Kesha, how dare you put your hands on my son?" Tamika sat up straight on the couch. "Girl, you done lost your damn mind." But Marcus just stood there breathing hard, staring at me. And I could see the calculation in his eyes. He was trying to figure out what had changed, how to reassert control. He was used to winning, used to dominating, and I'd just shown him that the game had changed. "Dinner's getting cold," I said calmly. "Y'all should eat." Then I walked away, left them standing there confused and angry, and for the first time in 3 years, uncertain. I went upstairs and put Aaliyah to bed, read her a story, The Paper Bag Princess. About a princess who saves herself and doesn't need the prince. Seemed appropriate. She fell asleep, holding my hand, and I sat there for a long time, just watching her breathe, thinking about all the nights she'd gone to sleep, listening to her mother being beaten. Never again. Never again. Around 11 o'clock, I heard footsteps outside the bedroom door. 2 sets, Diane and Tamika, coming to put me in my place. I'd been expecting this. Abusers hate losing control, and I just challenged the entire family hierarchy. They had to respond. I stepped out into the hallway, pulling the door closed behind me so Aaliyah wouldn't wake up. The 2 women were waiting for me, arms crossed, faces hard. "We need to talk," Diane said. "About what?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "About your attitude," Tamika said. "About your little stunt downstairs. You think you can embarrass Marcus like that in his own house?" "The house that's in my name," I said quietly. "Let's not forget that detail." Diane's face went red. That house was bought with my son's money. "Actually," I said, and now I let a little bit of my attorney voice come through. "The down payment came from my parents. The deed is in my name. Legally, this is my house. You and your daughter are guests. Guests who don't pay rent, don't contribute to utilities, and don't help with household expenses." The 2 women looked at each other, shocked. Kesha had never talked like this, never knew these things, never stood up for herself. But I wasn't Kesha. "I don't know what's gotten into you," Diane said, stepping closer. "But this attitude stops now." Tamika moved to my other side, flanking me. "Yeah, Marcus is too soft on you. Somebody needs to teach you some respect." She shoved me. Not hard, but enough to make a point. Enough to establish physical dominance. In the past, Kesha would have stumbled, apologized, backed down. I didn't move, didn't even rock back on my heels, just stood there solid as a wall and stared at Tamika. "Don't touch me again," I said. "Or what?" She shoved me again, harder this time. I still didn't move, and I could see the confusion in her eyes, the fear starting to creep in. "Let me explain something to both of you," I said, and my voice was ice cold now. "I've documented every bruise, every injury, every instance of abuse over the past 3 years. I have photographs, medical records, witness statements from neighbors who've heard the screaming. And all of that constitutes felony domestic violence." Diane opened her mouth to interrupt, but I kept talking. "You 2 are accessories to felony assault. You've participated in the abuse. You've encouraged it. You physically attacked me yourselves. That's conspiracy. In this state, that carries a sentence of 5 to 10 years. Both women had gone pale. "So here's how this is going to work," I continued. "You're going to go back to your rooms. You're not going to touch me. You're not going to threaten me. And tomorrow, we're all going to have a very serious conversation about the future of this household. Are we clear?" Diane found her voice. You can't prove any of that." I smiled. "I'm a lawyer, Diane. Proving things is literally what I do for a living." I turned and walked back into Aaliyah's room, closing the door behind me, leaving them standing in the hallway, stunned into silence. That was confrontation number 1. I'd established that the old power dynamic was broken, that Kesha wasn't going to take it anymore. But I knew it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Marcus wouldn't let this stand. His ego, his pride, his need for control, all of it had been challenged. He would retaliate.